One thing, sorry, I just wanted to mention before we move on was Luke Cowan-Dickie. He actually came out and apologised after the game on Twitter. Do you think, is there a need for that, or is that just the way we're gone? You don't like, you disagree with it?
I think it's ridiculous. Like, where does that stop? You know, what are we going to have Johnny Sexton text next week? I'm really sorry I missed that kick. Like, I just don't understand why players feel the need to.
Joe presents House of Rugby, United Rugby Championship, together with Bank of Ireland, proud supporter of the 4 Irish provinces.
Welcome back to House of Rugby, URC. Unfortunately, only a handful of URC games to look back on this week, guys, but there is the small matter of the Six Nations. As always, I'm joined by the lovely Megan Williams. Megan, did you watch rugby over the weekend? What do you think of it?
No, I didn't watch any of it. I'm just here to say no. Brilliant game. So it was unbelievable. I really, really enjoyed it. They were exceptional. It's great to be back in the studio. It's really starting to feel like things are really getting back to normal. Crowds back, and you can just feel the buzz and the vibe, over in the screen there. I was watching it at home, and it's staying warm.
Staying warm.
But it was really good.
Brilliant. And as always, my good friend, the man who single-handedly dragged Ireland all the way to the Olympics, the Olympic hero himself, Mr. Greg O'Shea.
Oh, the lads will love hearing that one,
Excitement.
Oh, thanks very much for that, man. I appreciate it. Good to see you as well, Jason. Underdressed as always.
Thank you.
And we have a great guest this week. And Leinster Irish Lions International with 62 caps and a hero of mine growing up. Denis Hickie, you're very welcome.
Thanks, Greg. Nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you.
Nice to be here.
It's good to have you. But we're going to kick things off with the small matter of Ireland and Wales.
I know. Huge win. 29-7.
Yeah.
Greg, first of all, I think that you were going to say that you were going to eat your hat if you heard that Mack Hansen was going to start the game.
No. The commentator's curse in reverse.
Yeah.
So, Dennis, last week I said that it's like Mack Hansen probably won't get any time, as I just can't see him getting in the squad with the likes of Keith Earls and Conway and everyone. He starts first of all. Obviously, I was like, oh my God, Greg, you're such an idiot. But that was a shock for everyone that he got to start. It's under the talking point.
Yeah.
And then the man goes out and gets player of the match.
I know.
What do I know? Do you know what I mean? So I publicly want to apologise to Mack Hansen. You had an incredible game, and I wasn't doubting your ability. It was just doubting you had no experience. And now you're probably the best player in the Irish squad at the moment.
Yeah.
So sorry, Mack.
What do you make of Mack Hansen, Dennis? I mean, I think there's a lot of similarities there, maybe in yourself. The fact that he's a guy that's got ridiculous speed, but very good footwork, very balanced winger. He seems to have it all, doesn't he?
I thought yesterday, for a guy who's playing his first international, obviously he's a very talented player. He can play in lots of different positions. He's regarded as a kind of a ball-playing winger. He's very comfortable with the ball. He's got a left boot. But it's still quite a big step up to play your first international. You know, he's obviously been going well with Connacht, and Connacht have been going well. But even still, I think the most impressive thing about his performance yesterday was that he got a lot of touches very early on in the game, and he kept involved, and Ireland kept him involved, but he was very calm, very at ease with the ball, distributing. It came off his wing a lot. He did a lot of trailing, so he was there for passes out the back. And he got a touch early on in the match as well, which I think really got him into it. But he was very cool under pressure. Lovely pass for Bundiaki's try. Just seemed very natural and very relaxed, and certainly well able to play at that level.
His first touch of the game really put him into the match, build his confidence for himself and his team. A few stats from the game as well. For the rugby nerds, he had the most carries in the match, 103 metres off 10 carries, 3 clean breaks, and he assisted that try, like you said, Dennis, for Bundy as well, which was fantastic.
Yeah, he would have got most of those metres in the first run he had in the game. He ran about 50 metres with that, which was some reaction though, because Johnny Sexton tried to kick it through and it bounced back and he caught it, which showed that he was really mentally in the game, really from day one or minute one, which was really contrasting to Louis Rees-Zammit. I thought Rees-Zammit had a really poor game. What did you make of him?
I'm not sure. He didn't look like he was fit.
Yeah.
I think they were saying even in the warm-up he was getting a bit of treatment on his ankle. He just didn't look 100%. But I think as well, to be fair to Louis Rees-Zammit, they had no go-forward ball. He barely got any ball, and it wasn't you were there.
Yeah.
Weather was pretty miserable. It was lashing rain, and Wales were just on the back foot the whole time. So obviously, Mack Hansen is going to have tougher tests, particularly if he plays next week against France, when Ireland will won't have it their own way, like the way they had against Wales yesterday. So it's going to be different. I think a much more different type of game for players like Mack Hansen. But I think the fact that he was able to get involved so much off the ball, we talked about obviously his involvement in the Bundyaki try, but he also played a big part, I think, in the second Conway try. Yeah. I mean, at the ball, at the back to him, really nice hands, was able to distribute and just looked really comfortable with the ball. And I know Johnny Sexton afterwards was talking about him, that he's very comfortable in different positions, and you could see why.
Yeah.
I think actually we have a clip here of Johnny Sexton and Andy Farrell speaking about Mack Hansen and just how good his debut was.
Yeah, really, really impressed. He's a good guy, which is the most important thing. He's bedded in really well into the group, and his performance speaks for itself. You sometimes guys like himself, I compared him to Lowy a bit in terms of the fact that guys that are so elusive and good at breaking tackles, they sometimes don't shine in training too often because their strengths, we're often not doing full contact, and you saw how many tackles he broke this evening. So he's going to shine in those games, and we'd seen him for Connacht, and he brought that into the international arena, and he's got a game that's made for international rugby. So hopefully he continues to grow with us, and it's a great start for him.
Yeah, some lovely words there from the captain. But something I noticed about Hansen as well, I think a really, really strong part of his game is he takes the ball hard to the line every single time, and he draws that defender in and throws the pass last second. Like, that's two things there. Number one, he's willing to get smashed, and he's not the biggest of players. And two, his hands are unbelievable. He's like this really, really small channels, and to get that pass out like just inside. As I know it's risky. But he didn't get caught once yesterday.
Yeah, it's high risk, high reward. He brings it really, really close to the line. But what you were saying earlier, Dennis, was that he kept really busy, which I was impressed with. I kept watching because I was a player camming him after me saying all that last week. I was like, let's see how well this guy actually plays. And he was coming in off his wing. The amount of times he showed up out the back of Sexton, and there was one time, I don't know if you noticed, that he tracked all the way across off his wing and tackled a Welsh player in the corner, and then made his way all the way back. That kind of work rate is just, that's what you need at the international level, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But I also think as well the Farrell game plan that we're seeing developing in front of our eyes over this, particularly this season, has been much more use of the wider channels, and the ball at the back, having ball players like him at the back, and Conway, and obviously Keenan as well. But it gives them just a lot more involvement in the game, and kind of that's the one of the biggest changes I've seen probably in the Farrell game plan versus the Schmidt game plan, which was. I also often, sometimes, even though Ireland were always winning and incredibly successful, sometimes you felt that the roles of the back three players were much more, maybe a little bit more limited, and they seem to have more of a kind of roving role mandate, which suits players like them.
Do you wish you played in that Farrell setup?
Well, I wouldn't mind playing any of those setups because they're all highly successful. So I don't think I would have minded playing under Joe Schmidt era, because that was incredibly successful era. But it just seems, whatever way the squad seems to be at the moment, they seem to be a very happy squad, very content squad. They were very vociferous, I thought, in their defence of Farrell at the start, when kind of people were questioning, is this just going to be a version of Joe Schmidt's game plan, just not as effective without Joe Schmidt? But he's clearly taken them in a different direction. And he's built on a lot of the excellent game plans and plays that they had under Schmidt, and he's taken it in his own direction. And the players really seem to have bought into it, and the senior players in particular. So they seem like a pretty happy squad.
I do think it's really refreshing to see their style of play, all this out the back and stuff. Like, you didn't really see that in Ireland, like back when you were playing. Obviously, you really good styles of play, but this is more like fluid, and they seem to be having fun and trying things, and so many options.
And the forwards really playing like backs. Like even Tag Furlong's ball behind the back there to Sexton to draw in that.
It helps, like, when you look at the pack that they have, like, they're such a dynamic pack. Like, it helps when you're dealing with, like, when you've got guys like Porter and Furlong there, and then you've got, like, it's ridiculous. So I just wanted to just go back there a second. I meant to ask you, just in terms of a winger's finish, I don't know. I don't know why this wasn't spoken about more yesterday, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it. Andrew Conway's first try. To me, I don't think you will find a better winger's finish in international rugby than what he had to do there. I mean, first of all, it wasn't the best of passes. He kind of has to slide in on his right knee. He has to take the pass. He has to use his hips, get back up off his left from a standing start and sprint around 3 men and then reach out and touch it down.
Yeah, he had a lot of work to do. Yeah, a huge amount of work to do. He's kind of one of these very, very industrious players, Andrew Conway. And again, he was a player who was in and around the fringes when Schmidt was the coach, and he's kind of finding his place in the team a little bit more under Farrell. He's very competitive in the air, very competitive with the ball, and without the ball, you know, he's abrasive, he's aggressive. I think he defends as well, but he had a lot of work to do yesterday for that try. And I just thought for a split second that the ref was going to say he came up short, but it was a good use of the TMO. And yeah, it was really, obviously the Welsh defenders I think would be probably a bit annoyed that they didn't stop, because you know he was able to get in underneath them. But he showed great power and a reach for not the biggest winger in World Rugby to be able to reach and just get out
I was very impressed with Conway back when I was in the academy. So I'd spent 3 years in the academy while Conway was in the senior team. And what I noticed with him is that his basics were just so good, like his passing, his tackling, his high ball. I remember specifically Razzie Erasmus said one time in a meeting that Andrew Conway's high ball skills are so good that we see it as nearly a set piece, like putting up a Gary Owen, because the chances his stats for getting the ball back was just like top notch. It was nearly as good as having a line out with her scrum. So it just shows the basics, and he's made himself probably first choice winger for the right side.
Well, he probably is at the moment. Like if everyone's back fit, it'll be interesting to see what way the back three unfolds, because you've got Earls, you've obviously got Lowe to come back. You've got Hansen.
You definitely wouldn't want to be a winger in that team at the moment.
What?
You definitely wouldn't want to be a winger in that Irish team at the moment.
Yeah, and you see other players who were in and around the squad in the build-up, like Balcoon, Hume as well, Larry. So and obviously, Hume's in the midfield, but Larry. So they have a huge strength and depth all of a sudden there in the back three. Even though there are a couple of guys maybe who haven't had a chance to step up yet, you get a chance that you get a feeling that they'll get a shot this year.
Yeah.
What about the atmosphere at the game, actually, Greg? You were at the game. I mean, it's the first time we've had a full crowd in a Six Nations game in 2 years.
Yeah.
Was it electric inside there?
Man, it was incredible. Like, even just the build-up, like walking around Lansdowne Road, and everyone was just in such a good mood. And it was raining, it was windy. It actually was a pretty cold day, but everyone was just smiling, just to be happy to be out again. And I know that we had a full stadium back when we played New Zealand at the end of last year, but there's something different about this. I think the Six Nations just
Six
brings...
Nations. Nothing bigger than the Six
Nations. There's a trophy
Nations.
at the end of it, you know. And Ireland are in a really good spot now to maybe win the thing. I know we probably won't get ahead of ourselves here, but we are in a really good spot.
There's also visiting fans, you know. I think that's the difference in Six Nations, where you had Welsh fans around the city. You know, I was in and around the city yesterday morning, and you know, you saw the scarves and the jerseys and people over the weekend, and you kind of forget that we haven't seen that in a couple
It was
of
actually a
years.
good few of them there, wasn't it? There was a good contingent there of Welsh fans.
It was Irish, Welsh, and there was a lot of French people actually, weirdly enough. So I was doing interviews beforehand, and there was honestly groups of French. I was like, "What are you doing there?" They were
Spies.
Like, yeah, they were. And they were all so nice. So they just wanted to come experience Ireland, have a pint of Guinness, and Temple Bar, go to the match, and then shout for France today. So it's pretty cool to see all the international people.
Yeah,
I know. I was really impressed with the captain, obviously Johnny Sexton. He had another phenomenal game. Denis, how do you feel like he's going to be getting on for the rest of the campaign? It's great to see Joe Carby come on at 60 minutes.
Yeah, like I think one of the things more heartening elements of yesterday's performance is that I got the sense, probably for the first time in a while, that as pivotal that Johnny Sexton is to everything that Ireland do, and you know, he's obviously so much of their game is built around him. You do get a feeling that the squad is more and more balanced, and their game their game isn't hinging as much on certain key individuals. But you know, that's not to say when he plays that clearly they can get to a different level. And I just think the drive he gives them in around the pitch, and the focus and the control and the execution of all the plays that go in and around him. He just runs that element of the game for them so well. So he's a key man, and he had another strong, really great day yesterday.
Uncharacteristically missing from the tee though twice early on. It was mad.
I don't know if you saw he did miss. But then when he saw those two kicks in the wind when he bent the
banana
was
kicks,
unbelievable. Yeah,
that was incredible skill.
That's good. He adapted well, in fairness to him.
Do you think he meant it?
Johnny Sexton. I thought someone else who was really important yesterday as well, who just seems to be getting better and better in an Ireland jersey, is Gibson Park. He just brings that extra element of speed to every ruck, and he's just so lively, and he kind of it's infectious with the rest of the backline.
Yeah.
And it makes a huge difference. And like, it's no offence to Conor Murray, like they're a very different scrum half, but it's nice to have someone like him who's going to come in and blow a team socks off for 50 minutes, and then someone like a general like Conor Murray is like, you know, the old-fashioned French scrum half, the general, come off the bench and just tidy things up. But,
I think Gibson Park suits the way that Farrell's game plan is at the moment. Like you said, it is really busy, really fast, and that's the type of player he is. Whereas Conor Murray isn't as much as that. Do you know?
Yeah, I know. I really liked the way Gibson Park, when we'd make a break yesterday, he'd get to the ruck instantly and he'd chip it over and he'd cause carnage for the back three. Like Louis Rees-Sammet's a Lions winger, and he couldn't deal with the little chips in behind. He only messed up 2 or 3 times. So, yeah, I think that's what Gibson Park brings, is that speed, and then Murray coming in off the bench just to finish it off. I'm sure Murray now would want to be starting, but it just seems like that's the best kind of way it is at the moment. What do you think, Dennis?
Yeah, like I think I agree with everything that's been said. He gets the ball, gets the ball away from the base very quickly. And he's always a threat himself as well. So I thought that, you know, there's a couple of opportunities. I think Ireland would look back at a couple of opportunities they had probably in and around the base of the ruck, where he was able to, Gibson Park was kind of able to move across him. The Welsh pillar defenders were kind of following him. I think they could have gone under him a few times, and there was certainly a few holes. So he keeps that defence very busy, you know. And it'll be interesting to see how France cope, because obviously they got Sean Edwards as their defence coach, and they'll be better organised than Wales were yesterday.
Yeah, like Doris and Van de Flair, I think, were setting the tone, big time with that defence. They were really, really strong and putting Wales under a lot of pressure.
How good was Van de Flair yesterday?
He was so good.
My God.
He's added that carrying ability to his game as well. Like, and he's just he's the all-round 7 now at the moment. Like, and I think personally he's Ireland's most improved player in the last 12 months. But anyone else that stood out for you, Dennis? I mean, I know for me, I think we always have to give a special mention. I think we're sick of talking of the front row. That front three again was absolutely ridiculous. But anyone stand out to you in particular? I
think a player who pressed me particularly in November, and he kind of had a tough year last year because he missed the Lions, has been Ringrose. Like, he was immense against New Zealand. I was sitting in the area where he pulled off an incredible hit on Barrett, who came through. You know, he was going in for a try right in the corner, and it was a massive hit. And Barrett took it a full tilt, and because obviously being at the game, you could see, you know, the play moved on, and Ringrose really took a while to get up, but he was tough as nails. And I thought he's kind of built on that performance, because he was brilliant throughout that game, I thought, against New Zealand, but he was really good yesterday. I was delighted to see him get a try, because he's hyper competitive. He's a very good distributor of the ball. And he's another guy, as I said, he had a tough year last year, but he's so far this season, he's been a real key man for him.
He's been great. He had 2 big injuries last year. He had a shoulder operation, then he broke his jaw. And I think he's so pivotal to the Irish backline, but people don't really talk about it as much as like, oh, Johnny this, Johnny that. Johnny's class, but I think Ringrose is doing such little minute details in defence, like reading. Like, you don't see the Irish backline getting opened up at all.
No, the defence is very good, and like a guy I thought was, you know, I'd say Hume, who's playing so well for Ulster this year. Like in any other season or any other, you know, squad, certainly in recent times, he probably would have got a shot. But I think it's because Ringrose was so good in November. Obviously, Leinster have been going very well. And I'd say that was a call that Farrell was happy. I'd say that Ringrose repaid his fate, because I'd say he was under pressure to pick Hume, because Hume has been playing so well for Ulster this year.
What do you think about next week with Henshaw coming back into the mix?
Yeah, like it'll be a different challenge. I'm not sure that they'll change the centre partnership.
They put him on the bench maybe instead of Hume. I mean, it's crazy to think you're saying there Hume's playing well and Ringrose playing well. Aki was one of the best players. You've got the Irish Player of the Year and the starting British and Irish line 13 still to come in.
Yeah, I think he will come in for that reason, because he's so competitive, and he was excellent in the Lions last year. Like, he really was a standout player, I thought. So I would expect to see him come in. I think he's a key man in the squad as well. I think he's, you know, a very senior player. When you go to Paris, you need it's a different environment than playing at home and maybe the first game of the season. So, you know, it would be And not that I don't think he would. I'm not saying he wouldn't be up to the task, Hume, if he got a shot in Paris or anywhere based on his form. But I think it'll be around those sort of key selections where you've got that experience between those three. One of them on the bench coming off, because it will be an attritional game in France. And if you see the French midfield, Vakatara and Ficou, two huge men. It'll be a much bigger challenge than they got yesterday.
Can we take much from that game? And we can't really, I suppose. I mean, Wales weren't great. They were missing a lot of players. It says a lot for them. They're going to have a tricky tournament. But, I mean, at the same time, we didn't really get out of first or second gear. And we made a lot of mistakes.
I think the only kind of dark cloud, really, of that game was points being left out. Do you think Ireland could have scored and probably should have scored a bit more?
Yeah, like I wouldn't underplay how bad the weather was yesterday. I think that it was very slippy. I thought that the skill level and the lack of errors for Ireland was quite remarkable considering the conditions. But you do have to look at Wales and say, okay, they had I think something like a combined loss of 650 caps. Guys are very, very experienced players. I think it was. I heard a stat before the match was it was the first time either Ken Owens or Alan Wynne-Jones hadn't played for Wales. One of them hadn't been playing since 2006. So, when you take out leaders of that sort of experience, I think that was always going to be a very, very tough game for Wales, and they just don't have the strength and depth at the moment.
A lot of people miss Alan Wynne-Jones, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would have, but there was some other kind of key players as well, just not there for them.
But a lot of people were saying that Wales are depleted. They had so many injuries with Tipuric, Alan Wynne-Jones, George North.
They had such a good squad on the pitch, though.
13 players that started against the Australia game that they won 29-28, their last fixture, were playing yesterday. Yeah. So they had a good team out there.
Oh, it's still a good team. I think you can look at it one way and go, oh no, Ireland left a lot of points behind them. You can say Wales missed on players, but at the end of the day, it was still a good Wales team. It was the Six Nations. You didn't really get out of first gear. You made mistakes. You still won with a bonus point. Do you know?
Yeah. The bonus point was certainly telling that both Farrell and Johnny Sexton said the highlight was the bonus point, because the way this tournament is,
it's quite huge.
It's picking up a bonus point against Scotland or France or England. Okay, people will probably think most teams will have a shot at a bonus point against Italy, given where they are in their development versus the other teams. But I'm not, it wouldn't be a foregone conclusion that every team is going to pick up a bonus point against Wales, for example.
No, definitely not.
To get that bonus point, again, in those conditions, even as dominant as they were, is key for Ireland, particularly when it comes down to those points difference.
Another impressive element of it was that if it wasn't for the try that they popped up and intercepted there at the end, they would have kept Wales to 0, which was really impressive for the defensive system as well.
Yeah, that was just it was an error. It was just it was the end of the game. I think they were kind of let the foot off the gas a small bit, and he kind of just was Ty Byrne through the loose pass, wasn't it? So I wouldn't look too much into that, but I said it probably should have been 0.
Yeah.
Which is
until I can just you've given yourself a curse now. In the last week it'll be come down to points difference in the championship, and you'll be saying that try in that last minute against Wales.
Could you imagine it?
Yeah. That's what's going to happen,
So you're confident with them going to Paris next week then?
I'd be interested to see how France go today, but France for me are a fantastic team, and as strong as Ireland were in November, France are every bit as strong, and they've got a fantastic squad. They've got a fantastic group of players, and they've got probably the most exciting player in world rugby in Dupont. If between himself and Furlong, the two best, I would say. Obviously, clearly they're not competitors in their various positions, but
we saw Furlong showing that pass yesterday. I mean, some of the stuff he was doing, I'd say he's got a few highlights himself,
Yeah, it's an even game, I think, as well, isn't it? 5.
I'm just getting it. Obviously, we'll have the score by the end of this, so we're filming this on a Sunday. It's only 11-10 now to France, just approaching half time.
Wow.
So there isn't a whole lot in. So fair play, Italy.
Yeah, no, that's fair play, Italy. But it'll be. I think it's an even kick-off in Paris next week, or it's the last game. So it'll be an electric atmosphere.
The Paris factor is going to be killer.
Yeah, French rugby is kind of riding high as well, and people are getting in behind the team in France, probably in a way that they didn't when Saint-André was the coach. There was a lot of disillusionment, I think, between where the national team sat in the pecking order versus the league. Yep. But I think between Laporte and Galtier, they've just created something about the French side, which it'll be the game everyone wants to watch next week.
Well, the French seem to be playing with a lot of freedom, so I'm really looking forward to next week, because Ireland seem to be playing with a lot of freedom as well.
Definitely.
But they're not the only teams in the Six Nations. There was also another game yesterday, Scotland v England, and Scotland got a great win at home, which I kind of expected them them to get. But did you think
Oh, you'd
Ireland,
love to see
Scotland would get the
England
win?
lose, don't you?
Yeah.
Come on, the main man here.
20 points to 17 to Scotland. Yeah, great
Yeah,
stuff.
it was. I'm not sure I saw Scotland winning the game because I just thought England might have a bit too much power for them as the game wore on. And even with 20 minutes to go, I thought, okay, Scotland being incredibly competitive, and they rode their luck a little bit. They scored, obviously a fantastic try in the first half, but I thought England were just going to be able to turn the screw a bit on them with their bench. So the fact that they were able to get the win was incredible for them, albeit in circumstances that they got the decisions yesterday. Two big decisions.
Yeah. It's the first win in 38 years, is it? Against
So
England?
it's their first time retaining the Calcutta Cup, so winning it back to back, for winning it twice.
Okay.
So they won it. They beat them last year, but it's the first time in 34 years that they've won it back to back Calcutta Cups. But looking at the game itself, so obviously we know England were missing a lot of players went into the game, and Scotland had a few guys injured as well. But you could see very tense game, first 10-15 minutes. It's England-Scotland, fan back, it's a raucous Murrayfield. But it kind of opened up. Darcy Graham made an absolutely incredible break. Ben White was only on as a blood sub for Ali Price. But what do you make of Darcy Graham? Like, to me, I was saying it before we came on camera. I think he's the closest thing we've seen to a Shane Williams style back three player in a long time.
Yeah, he's lightning fast. I remember, I think he got capped maybe 2 years ago. Was his first match. First season, and as a maybe he was 20, I think, but even then he had serious pace, and he's now established himself in the team. Maitland was keeping him out for a while, a more experienced player, but he was fantastic yesterday. He's just so fast, and the back three for Scotland are so quick at the moment, and they're very, very dangerous between Van der Merwe and Hogg, So their game plan is therefore built around getting them the ball. And the try yesterday, the line, obviously Hogg created a bit of momentum, but the line Darcy Graham took, and then his footwork was, and his not just his footwork, I think his awareness and his composure, because he tried to win, and he was still able to give the pass. And it was great. It was great. Like any kind of scrum half and young scrum half looking at play. Certainly one of the angles you could see the great trail work that he picked up for the inside line. So it was a brilliant try.
Yeah. It was another great try in that game. Mark Smith scored an absolute cracker. I mean, the pace in which he hits that line, he's a serious player, and he's getting better and better. And I think on any other day, he could have been on the winning side. But it did come down to in the end into a decision. And I'd love to get your thoughts on it. Everyone's thoughts on it. I think most people agree it was a penalty try. So kick came across, Luke Cowan-Hickey goes up. You'll see it. He makes no attempt. He actually does that.
Which is the first thing, because I don't know why, because he could have caught it.
That's the thing. I think
if you can get two hands to slap it, you can get two hands to catch it. It was pretty bizarre. It's just a rush of blood to the head.
That's what I'd say. I'd say it was rush blood, as in it was a brain fart, as we call it in Ireland, essentially. But I mean, maybe Darcy wouldn't have caught it. But I think in terms of the fact that it was a professional foul, the referee is looking at that. He's taken him out of the equation, so he's imagining he's not there. If Darcy Graham is standing on the wing on his own and the ball is kicked across him, 9 times out of 10, 9.5 times out of 10, he's catching that, he's scoring in the corner. So I mean,
when the ref gave the penalty try, I said, okay, that's you could argue it both ways. I think if he hadn't given a penalty try, I don't think everyone would have been convinced it was a penalty try. I think it was the referee. He looked back the rationale. He was very clear on why he'd given the penalty try. But it was a wet and muddy day. There was going to be a contest in the air for the ball, so he gave the penalty try. But if he hadn't, I wouldn't have been that. Wouldn't have
got out of Scotland safe, so the referee.
He might have got out of Scotland. If he'd given the penalty in the scrum at the end, he certainly would have got out of Scotland. And I think England had the right to feel a bit aggrieved with that, because the scrum wheeled around that scrum, and he'd already told I think Youngs to take it out, and he gave him another shot at it, and then England had to use the ball. Because it was a second reset, and he was shouting at him to use it. He really didn't want him to have to make a decision. As soon as the ball was at the back, he was saying, "You got to use it." And I don't know why he has to use it. Why did he have to use it? Like the referee, shouting it to use the ball when the scrum was rock solid. I don't know why. What the obligation is to take the ball out there. So I think he was hoping that he wouldn't have to make.
I think that brings us back to our point earlier on about the home games, and when we go off to France next week, if it does come down to and it's a 3 or 4 point game, when you're a referee or a TMO in that position, if there is if it's okay, give Ireland a penalty, it should be a penalty, and they're trailing by 2 points, you're not going to get that decision. Whereas you have a much better chance of getting that decision in Dublin.
That's the,
you know what I mean?
That's what home and away is all about. You know,
Yeah.
it's these kind of referees are they're doing their best, and but they're human as well, and
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
it's hard not to be influenced by what's going on.
Of course,
around.
it's only natural. It's natural. But
It's great.
one thing, sorry, I just wanted to mention before we move on was
Yeah.
Luke Hickie. He actually came out and apologised after the game on Twitter.
Yeah.
Do you think is there a need for that, or is that
It's
just the way we're
ridiculous.
gone? You don't like you disagree with
I
it?
think it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, where does that stop? You know, what are we going to have Johnny Sexton text next week? Oh, sorry, I'm really sorry I missed that kick. Like, I just don't understand why players feel the need to.
It's happening a lot
Yeah, but
recently,
like,
even with Bundyaki.
But if we take, which I think on face value that every player is going out to do their best.
Of course.
He
was one of the best players on the pitch.
And there are going to be mistakes.
Other than that, yeah.
This idea that we're going to have this public public sort of contrition on social media for errors. I said, where does it stop? So I just think it's always totally ridiculous.
It's gone a bit far now. Even with the whole Razzie Erasmus thing over the summer.
Do you think they're being pressured into this though? Are they being pressured into this by the media, or is it still them? It's just them
their own
thinking,
choice,
I
though.
have to do it. Like,
Yeah, it's their own choice. But the thing, I wouldn't be surprised if World Rugby bring in ruling now to stop players like having opinions on social media about stuff, because it's going to go too far now. When you have directors of rugby from South Africa,
You wonder if people, the coaching staff or management are pressuring them to maybe do it.
Yeah.
they do it. Is it
You wonder,
GE? They do it like where you're not allowed to tweet after the games.
Yeah, well, they have rules in the IRFU as well. You're not allowed to do social media 24 hours before, 24 hours after.
Yeah, we had that.
Yeah, but
It's just it's just unnecessary. You know, people are free to do whatever they want, and this is the world we're living in. But I think it's good enough to be able to say to your teammates, "Listen, I've messed up there," than to have to issue public apologies that no one's looking for.
But as I said there, like
Yeah.
when you have the head of South African rugby doing it, when he came out and did the 60-minute video about the ref, and then he's tweeting like as if he's just sitting at home, like just messing away. Like it seems to be that it's gone a little bit too far and it's making a muggery of the whole thing. And in fairness, Luke Hickie, yesterday, he's coming out and apologising. He hasn't done anything bad, but
I don't. Yeah, I think you're right to point that out. I don't think there's an equivalence between what Erasmus did during the summer and what he's doing. Like, it's probably well-meaning.
I think it opens up the conversation too much for them. It probably puts the light back onto them, whereas if you just left it, people would just be forgetting about it. We wouldn't be speaking about it as much as today, do you know? Like,
Dennis is right. We're all human. Like, you're an athlete. Like, he did not go out there to do that on purpose.
And
He made a
everyone knows
mistake
that.
in the game.
Like,
And
everyone's
then
going to
he
the
doesn't
game.
need to come out and tell us
Everyone
that.
watching the game
Of
and
course.
knowing the game. I'd be interested to see how. I would love to know. Sorry, because we're never going to know. But you'd be really interested to know what people like, what Eddie Jones thinks of that. Like, what he's going to do with there. So, but I don't know. I hope it's not a sign of things to come.
Yeah.
It's been a few times at this stage.
too much.
What do we think of Scotland as a whole? I mean, that's a big win for them.
just wanted to say that, yeah.
Do we think Scotland?
In the
Like, I
championship.
hear a lot of people saying that if there's ever a year for Scotland to win it, with the back line that they have, with the forwards that they have, do you think? Should we honestly consider them as contenders?
Oh, 100%. Like, we were only talking about it before the show, just saying they've been getting better and better. We forget how many players that they have in the URC who are performing like week in, week out. And I'm thoroughly enjoying the style of the rugby that they're playing at the moment. It's fast, it's strong, and I'm delighted that they beat England.
And they were born in England as well.
I know.
It's so funny. Their provincial rugby is really good. Edinburgh's playing really well. We're at the
Top of
top.
the league.
Ulster's gone top now, I think, since yesterday. And Glasgow are incredible as well. But what I was speaking to my mates yesterday after the match, it's really cool now that, like, when people go to Murrayfield, they're not just guaranteed a win. Like, when you're playing Scotland, it used to be like Scotland and Italy, you'll get 2 wins and then it's between the other 4 nations. Like, back when you were playing, it was probably a bit like that as well. But now Scotland are properly contenders. Like.
I'd be afraid of Scotland coming over to the Viva, let's be honest with you. The style of rugby they play, to be honest with you, I think they could cause an upset.
I don't know if they're going to.
Could they?
I don't know if they'll win, but I think they'll get.
I think they're, Scotland have flattered to deceive in recent years. They beat England and they beat France last year, but they finished, I don't know, mid-table, even fourth, even in the championship. So they won games that people probably thought they shouldn't have won, and they lost games that people thought they should never have lost. So getting the consistency, and particularly away from home, will be their next challenge. Winning against England, the old enemy, they're right up for the game. They deserve to win. But it's a long tournament to go. They've got to go into Wales. Wales won't be playing like that again next week. No. So that'll be a whole different set of challenges to them. And there'll be teams will be very wary of playing Scotland, so they'll play accordingly. I think one of the things that they don't have compared where they'd be weaker to Ireland. I don't think they have the same level of ball carriers in the up front.
Yes,
Ireland have so many ball carriers now, and that's what's changed their game. I think so much for like they have a whole front row who can carry the ball, very comfortable with the ball, and likewise the back row, everyone's a ball carrying option, which probably wasn't even the case 4 years ago in Ireland, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Scotland don't have that same
especially in
level
tight five. They don't have a good tight five.
And they don't have big ball playing tight five. They're big units, I suppose, and they were certainly effective yesterday keeping the English 8 at bay. But that'll be the next step up for them, I'd say.
Yeah. And what did you make of England's performance yesterday?
I think I was a bit surprised with their tactics. I think they kicked really poorly. Both, I think when you're saying a team kicks poorly, I think you're talking about their decision making and when to kick. There was some, you talk about Luke Cowan-Dickie apologising, but the one I think he should apologise more if he was concerned about apologising. He put a kick through at some point when he was I think about 17 or 18 minutes, and like England were attacking and in good attacking position. He finds himself in second receiver and kicks it dead, I think.
I thought he was or
kicked it in and exactly, kicked it into the dead ball line, and it was picked up, and. But that was kind of symptomatic, I think, of England's kicking game yesterday. They didn't kick well, and they didn't pick the best times to kick. So I thought they were a little bit disjointed. And the problem is, I think, when you're playing Scotland, particularly at home, when Scotland got to half time and it was very competitive, it was going to be a very difficult second half for them. So I was a little bit disappointed by their tactics or their execution yesterday. They're still, they've a really strong squad. They'd be really hard to beat in Twickenham, and they're going to be better next time out.
Yeah, without Farrell and without Tuolangi, I thought Marcus Smith was incredible yesterday. You said, Megan, he scored all the points.
All the points,
his vision for that try was really good. He stepped up and nearly got all his kicks.
Yeah.
It shows he really has a good bit of bottle for how young he is.
He's so much pace. It's such a leveler. If you've got a guy who playing in that position, who can come onto the ball at that sort of pace.
They really have to respect him.
Yeah, and it's very, very difficult to mark, particularly as the game builds through phases and you get to third and fourth phase and there's forwards in places that they shouldn't be and the defences are less organised. If you've got your first receiver who is so dangerous but so comfortable taking the ball to the line and laying it off as well. So
he makes more clean breaks than any other 10 in the world at the moment, I think.
Yeah, and he's still only learning international rugby, so he's going to be a big star.
And do you think England still have a chance to win the Six Nations?
I wouldn't. I don't like it's Johnny Sexton, I think, summed it up very well yesterday. He said in his press conference, he said, this time last year, you lose your first match, your Triple Crown is gone, Grand Slam is gone. Maybe a shot at the championship, but you're really scrambling after a first loss. But it can be done. It can be done. Will there be a Grand Slam this year? It's going to be. It's so competitive. You think this mightn't be the year there'll be a Grand Slam because there's so much. There's so many strong teams, but we probably didn't think that last year when Wales won the Grand Slam. So
It's true.
Well, plenty more Six Nations to come. We're looking forward to it. But there's URC as well on the weekend that we will get onto. Ulster were playing, but before that, we might as well get to know our guests a little bit better. So we have 10 questions for you, Dennis. I hope you're all right with that. I'll kick it off. So we have a question in from Billy, whoever Billy is, who wants to know who is the best player that you've played with on and off the field. So,
on and off the field.
Yeah, so it's kind of two elements there. Who's the best crack, really, and then who was the best player.
And they don't necessarily have to be the same person.
Don't have to be the same person.
Yeah,
put
two different people,
you on the spot there now.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I was lucky, I would say, to play in some very successful teams with some of Ireland's greatest players. Over the last 10 years, 15 years. People like Keith Wood, who was an incredible player, like a world player, and probably wasn't on a team that was as successful as subsequent teams. So he was certainly an incredible all-rounder, a guy who you would imagine would excel in any era. I'd say Paul O'Connell, Rog, but Shane Horgan was probably maybe in the off the pitch play. I'd probably say Shane Horgan.
Shane Horgan, really, yeah.
Very often. I had a couple of man of the match. He had a couple of man of the match performances, certainly off the pitch as well as on the pitch. But I obviously played with Brian at club and international, and it's hard to see past him as the greatest player I've played with. I don't think that's too groundbreaking to say.
Dennis, can you tell us about the golden triangle?
Yourself, Horgan and O'Driscoll, were you known as the Golden Triangle back in the day? No.
Not by me.
Not by you.
Rala, actually, Rala, the kit man for Ireland. That's what he used to. That was our moniker, because the three of us would be usually the last in. The night before the game, everyone would have their kind of time slot to come in. It tend to be the last three in. So
the three golden boys.
The three of us would be chatting to him at times. But there was a couple of golden boys in that team as well.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it was us.
The next question comes in here on Instagram from a chap called Quigley. A controversial question here, I think. Did Ron O'Gara ever drive you mad by not fully utilising the Gaulish-Irish backline of the 2000s?
I think he did a pretty good job of it, actually.
Yeah.
I think he was. I'm not sure I agree with the premise of the question. We did pretty good on the back of him at 10. So,
yeah, I think so as well. So
we now Roger was an amazing link player and fantastic at. We were lucky, between most of that era, had Stringer at 9 and Roger at 10, and the speed and the flatness of the ball was never something we had to worry about.
Yeah.
We had a constant stream of
he must have been a Leinster fan or something. I'd say
yeah,
maybe he's a Leinster fan. He's not the biggest fan of Raj.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is. But yeah, we'll all respectfully disagree with you.
Yeah, I don't know where you're getting that out of.
That's look at Leinster fans. I'm telling you.
We have another one from our social channels. A question from Andrew Murphy. What's your favourite match that you've ever played in?
I would say the best occasion I think I played in was, and this is just a fortune of the era and the time we were playing, was being in the first season of playing at Croke Park. So getting to play the England match in Croke Park, I think, was probably the best occasion, probably the best match. Now, probably played in closer games, or maybe games can be memorable for lots of different reasons, but for a pure occasion, it was a fantastic game.
And
to
what
play.
year was that, Dennis?
That was 2007. Yeah.
Wow.
2007. Yeah, I was fantastic. It was everything leading up to the game, the match itself. And everything around it. It was an incredible.
That was emotional to watch. I can't imagine what it was like to play in.
Yeah.
Watching on a TV screen.
Yeah.
Even now, looking back, you're like, so I can't imagine what it was like for you. That's that multiplied by a million.
Yeah, one of the great things about even post match, or even going all the way to the match. Generally, as you're driving in and around Lansdowne Road, you go down Shelburne Road and from the team bus, etc. And it's great. There's lots of big crowds and people outside the bars as you head into the game. And the bus journey in is always fantastic. But one thing that stuck with me from that particular game was the bus journey back, because the meal was in the Shelburne Hotel, and the bus journey that the route that we took on the way back took us back down O'Connell Street, which was not obviously traditional. The route that the bus would take, because obviously usually in and around Lansdowne Road, we'd be driving around Ballsbridge, or in for where our team hotel was out in Stillorgan. So just the uniqueness of driving down O'Connell Street, there's a huge amount of fans still around because people were still coming back from the game, coming back from Croke Park, and a huge amount of Irish and English rugby fans on O'Connell Street, which is kind of atypical. Well, it's not usually where you associate fans to be after the match, because they're usually in and around Lansdowne Road. So that's one memory really stuck.
It's like a scene sounds like a scene out of a movie or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. Just because it's such a symbolic occasion.
Yeah, just so lucky to be playing in that era, because obviously Ireland played there for a couple of seasons, but involved in those first games was really special.
That's really cool.
Wow.
That's really cool. So next question is something that kind of I can relate to. You're kind of before your time in influencing. So a lot of people have a lot of interest in relation to your Wavin pipe commercial you did in 2009.
That came up a lot, actually.
Yeah, the OG
It comes up regularly.
Yeah.
One of the greatest honours I've ever won. I think I won the second captain's best worst sports endorsement.
Oh, man.
They ran a whole section on it. They ran a whole section on sports endorsements from the 80s and 90s.
And you were
2000s.
Brilliant.
And I came out with the garlands from that one.
With that one,
Hope you got paid well for it anyway.
One of the great.
Honestly, it was actually my first time seeing it, prepping for the show, and I was like, Dennis, man. Unless, of course, because we have a question in here from Robin Bogan who wants to know, did you in fact actually use Weapon Pipe in your day-to-day life?
Yeah, no, it's certainly one for the it's certainly one for YouTube, all right.
I'd say the lads gave you so much crap about it.
Luckily there was all my St Mary's College teammates were in the team, so it was actually done to our rugby club. So there's a couple of other cameos in there as well if you look closely. I took the heat.
In this day and age, man, you would have been eaten alive on social media for that. You kind of got away with it.
Yeah, you got away with it. Yeah.
kinda got away with it,
Do you still have the jersey, the Waven jersey, framed at home? No.
I lost it. What can I say?
Very convenient.
What can I say?
I'd say you're nicely sick of everyone bringing that up now in the pub. And
You
everything.
just got to laugh at it. You know? It's of its time.
I've done worse, lad. Don't worry about that. I've done plenty worse.
We've got another one here, like from a former Leinster player who's a friend of the show, and we won't say who, but he said, ask him about Reggie Corrigan's Thursday Pint Club.
I wonder who that is actually. I wonder who's sending in that text.
Anonymous.
I'm not sure there was any Thursday pint clubs, but there was probably Tuesday pint clubs. Like, it wouldn't have been unusual. It wouldn't be, like, I'm sure things have changed so much, but this is all pre-social media.
You get away with stuff.
Smartphones. This is most of my career was kind of pre all that, so it wouldn't have been unusual to have to go out if you weren't playing. Like if you usually have kind of a down day on a Wednesday, it wouldn't have been unusual to go out in a big one on Tuesday.
Few jars.
Yeah.
I found it really interesting.
And it wouldn't be not limited to Reggie either, you know.
Yeah, I actually found it really interesting that you say that, because I watched a Roy Keane documentary with Gary Neville. He had an interview a couple of weeks ago. It's on YouTube, and most of his stories were like, "Yeah, we were out midweek having a few drinks, and then we play on a Saturday." I was like, "What?
Yeah.
The top level of sport? That's only a decade ago."
Yeah, we would have. And I'm not saying we were doing it every week.
Yeah,
but,
of course, yeah.
But you would have. It wouldn't have been uncommon.
Yes, I remember O'Driscoll complaining there recently. He's saying that I think the last couple of years, that kind of Super Sunday thing where you all go out on the tear after the Six Nations, they don't do it anymore. He was like, "What?"
They couldn't do it anymore, I'd say. I'd say they couldn't do it anymore. Yeah, the Super Sunday going the day after the last. You usually go to Kells in St Anne Street, and we'd be there all day, and. But people just leave you alone and
of course.
You away. But now, of course, that can't happen really anymore.
And
I don't envy that part of being a professional sports person now.
and speaking
all
of,
their medals and championships,
Yeah. It's a shame that they can't let their hair down a little bit.
and speaking about drinking in rugby, you weren't on a Lions tour. If you're not, what was the drinking culture like in that one?
Well, the 2005 Lions tour is forgettable for lots of reasons because of
Dan Carter.
Well, I think it's
Woodward.
Well, it's kind of like I've no beef with the fact that, you know, if you're not on a successful Lions tour, it's not remembered. It's all about they either win the series and it becomes a great Lions tour, or you don't. And we were absolutely hosed in the series in the three tests. I played on the midweek side. Yeah. And we had actually had a good run on the midweek side. Like we won all our games, and we had a good sort of score. We had a good kind of group of guys who were, you know, destined not to be playing on the test side, and kind of got used to that fact.
Yeah.
But we had Ian McGeechan was our coach. Himself and Garen Jenkins was the coach at the midweek side.
And didn't he famously not let you out for a few drinks during the week?
No. You could do whatever you wanted.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like, and that was, to be fair, that was Clive Woodward's philosophy. He wasn't a micromanager of people.
Yeah.
You know, he was more into. And I think he was very aware. He'd been on Lions tours himself. He was aware of that. You know, trying to build the bonding culture on a Lions tour is the big challenge. You know, trying to bring the team together, and that was the bit that I don't think we got right on that tour.
Yeah.
And just the smallest kind of details, like England, for example, had obviously won the World Cup in 2003, and he had brought a lot of his thinking from that. And one of the things that England had brought in and it seems like such a small detail, was that England all had their own rooms. So in every international team that certainly, or most teams I've ever played on, you didn't have your own. You shared. You shared with someone, but England had their own rooms, and this was one of these small details that Woodward had tweaked, and they'd won the championship. So for the Lions tour, we didn't room with anyone, which seemed
kind of
like
work on a Lions tour, like it's different.
Exactly.
It's not a World Cup. A World Cup is
but I mean,
much more serious.
Looking back now, okay, these are the things that didn't work, but I think Clive Woodward just wanted to approach it very differently, and if it had worked, he would have been seen as someone who made all these changes and that made the difference. So, but little things like that made it harder for the teams to gel, and but it was still Leinster New Zealand was pretty intense.
Yeah, and out of interest, you said that you felt like you weren't going to be playing in the Test match side, and that group of lads that you kind of knew, did that make it a weird dynamic at training and stuff?
Yeah, again, that was one of the they took probably 4 players more than has. There's no set number of players to start with. That Lions tours have to be. And usually you end up, there's 45, 46, 47 players used by the end of the tour. So the thing was to bring more people from the start. But that facilitated then at midweek and the team that was kind of more.
Full teams, essentially,
yeah, exactly. And 2 full teams that often didn't overlap, trtrain at different times as well. And things like that. Yeah, it kind of got a bit weird at a point in time. But and it's certainly not what I expected Lions Tour to be about, because Lions Tour had never been about that beforehand, and actually have never been about that since. It was an experiment that just didn't work.
Yeah. I remember Donnacha Hallam was actually talking about that there only a few years ago, and he said they were called the midweek massive. Like he actually purposely split the teams in half.
That's terrible.
So I mean, you're literally like you look at why are Ireland getting so successful at the moment. That competition, we were saying, look how good Mack Hansen was. He knows James Lowe could come back in at the end of this tournament at some stage. If you know I'm in this test squad, it doesn't matter. And then in the others, you have no chance of getting in. Well, I'm going to the pub, so.
Yeah. Tough to stay motivated. But
yeah.
It's still at the Lions Tour, though.
But it was it was what it was, It was, but it was
trying to be too clever.
Disappointing. Well, it was just it was disappointing not to have played better on the tour. I certainly don't hold up the team structure or the way the team is organised for my lack of getting a run on the test side. I wasn't playing very well, so I didn't get a run.
You're still a Lion.
Absolutely. It was still a pretty unique tour to be on.
Love hearing the old stories. We could be sitting talking about all day. Is it true that Victor Costello used to be pretty creative about getting out of the fitness sessions?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, Victor's an explosive animal in the sense that he likes sharp bursts of he's he's a kind of power athlete.
Big man.
And I think like lots of things that have evolved over years, when professionalism first came in, obviously Victor played throughout a long span, but at the start it was kind of very symptomatic of the way professionalism went. It was that one day people weren't professional, next day they were professional. So that means one day they were training 2 or 3 times a week. Literally the next day we were all training 3 times a day. So it took a long time for the IRFU for people to understand how to get the best out of particular athletes and how to get people fit and fast. So it was very much a one-size-fits-all approach back then. So Victor's was more on the explosive. He liked to do the short, sharp stuff, so to say. But that's he was pretty good at that.
Denis, am I right in saying that you were one of the first male athletes to be given a professional contract?
Yeah, I was in the first round of professional contracts. Yeah, in 1997.
Wow,
so the first round, first.
Megan was one of the first women, so as well. So
there you go.
Interesting to have one of the first men, the first one to get a professional contract. So that's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was good at the time. I was still in college, and then the game gone professional in. 2005. It was in '95 after the '95 World Cup, but it didn't go professional in Ireland till that year, '97. Yeah. So the first contracts came out in '96, '97.
Can you remember what your first contract was?
Oh yeah. Of course I can.
Never forget.
Of course I can.
Did you feel like, I remember we asked you that
Mad.
when we had one of the first shows, we asked you about like the pressure, or like, okay, you're in that first group of, there 4 E and there's 3 of E. Like, do you feel that extra pressure? Like, okay, I'm literally like the first of 3 men to be handed a professional deal.
It's
With
just
rugby,
so-
just,
it's just so
the game
fun.
itself just turned professional.
Yeah,
It's insane.
well, I wasn't. There was more than 3. There was
Sorry.
3 national. There was 3.
Apologies.
There was a couple of different layers, and I was in the top tier. There was 3 in the top tier.
Yes.
But then there was another. I think there was 3 or 4 tiers at that stage, and it all happened around the same time. And I would have been delighted to get any contract at that stage, but it was. It was
What kind of money are we talking here?
good money.
Good money.
Yeah,
Even
it
back
was good.
then?
Yeah,
What are we
it
talking
was
about?
good.
Give us a figure. Give
I'll
us
tell
a
you, I'll tell you after. I'll tell you after.
We always
After.
Can't ask them to do that now.
I'll tell you after.
on a
But
show.
it was like the.
Everyone listening wants to know.
I'm sure they do. Yeah. No, it was. There were the one of the unusual things about professional rugby at that stage was that you were contracted nationally. There was not. They didn't have provincial. They had provincial contracts, but there was only a certain amount of professional people in each province. So, like when Mike Ruddock was our coach, it wouldn't have been unusual for like 8 or 9 people to be training, because everyone there was probably only 8 or 9 professional players in each province.
I remember
So
we were
there
like
was
that as well.
yeah.
There was only sometimes 3 or 4 of us would be contracted, and we would just be getting our fitness and working
And then
on our
other players
skills,
coming in
and
the
other
evening,
players would gradually come in.
Yeah.
You know, every week maybe someone new would come, and
Yeah.
then eventually we had like 12, 13 players. And like, right, we can play games now.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
It's like
Yeah.
that story with, I
Yeah.
think it was it Marcus Horn and Donegal Gallan when they were at Munster. There was only a certain amount of contracts, and both of them wanted to play, so they have the contract. But like, it wasn't even like they said the figure. It wasn't much at the time. It was like a 50,000 contract or something. Like, yeah, right, we'll just take 25 each, so we can play for the season and see if we're good enough, and then you can give us a contract next
Yeah.
year. But
Yeah.
that's the way it was. Like, you know, to have their contract.
Like it's it's small money compared to what would have been what's a senior contract now. But
Yeah.
at the time it was
Well, it was
fantastic.
good money, yeah,
Like
if you think
the
about it.
top players now are making really good money, which they should be, because they probably should be making more than they're making. But it's limited by things outside of their control. Unfortunately, the pool of sponsorship and money is only so big.
Let's not get me started about Sevens money.
We move on to the next question.
Yeah.
Brennan would like to know who is the toughest player you've ever played with.
There's a tough player, and then there's the hard man. You know, there's kind of people sometimes mix up both. There's people who are incredibly durable who never get injured.
Like a Driscoll or something like that.
Yeah, like
just
a
machine.
exactly. Just
Yeah.
you could say at one level. Like I luckily played with Trevor Brennan throughout my career, as opposed to ever having to play against him, both at club and province and for Ireland. You know, you some of the I suppose the more famous characters in that category would be people like Peter Clossy, who played with him the first couple of seasons. But there are other players as well who just never get injured. Which is an incredible skill answer. People like Shane Byrne. Shane Byrne never get it, just never injured. And you need guys who can just continually play, never pick up injuries. Doesn't matter how much they get bashed, that they're always getting up and playing. And so yeah, there was a couple of I said hard players and tough players. You know,
Tough, durable.
The best ability is availability.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So SP Myler would like to know, of all the tries that you've scored in your career, you've 29 international ones, you've countless with Leinster. Which one is your favourite?
International try.
Or could be Leinster.
Or, yeah, just in general.
Well, I think there's again you remember things for different reasons. The probably. If I'm known for any try, it'd probably be the Leinster try against Toulouse. That's probably regarded as from other people as the try they associate with me most, which is a fantastic team try. I'm always happy to talk about it, but I always like if people talk about it, you need to start at the start of the play. Like it's the ball changes hands, it goes from team to team. It's starts on one end, it goes back up the other end. So it's not just obviously the running at the end. What for me what makes it such a good try, and as I said, because the ball changed hands, and I've looked at that video a couple of times, and as you can imagine, but and another day the referee blows up for the ball was knocked back and forward and two hands, and another time you just don't, the referee just doesn't play on, and you can go against it, but that was a fantastic team try. And it was a great occasion, great day that day. So to score a try like that in a game like that, it certainly was probably my highlight for Leinster. But I suppose from a different perspective, far less spectacular try was the first try I scored for Ireland, my first cap in. I'm so old, I actually played in the Cardiff Arms Park.
Oh, yeah.
That's how old I am. So it was in the old Cardiff Arms Park, the last season before they tore it down.
Amazing. Well, you've had some unbelievable tries. Thanks very much for answering all those questions. So moving on
I hope I haven't incriminated myself or others too much.
No. So we could have talked for ages about all your memories and stories.
Great.
Yeah, we have to get on to the URC because there was a rescheduled match. Ulster and Connacht played, and Ulster were really, really impressive, especially the likes of Lowry and Ballycoon. What did you make of that match, Dennis?
I think Ulster have. Ulster endured a couple of tired years on and off the pitch, and with the John O'Gibbs leaving, really kind of set them back, and they had a big change in their squad, and you were wondering when they were going to turn the corner with McFarlane. You're kind of wondering, were they ever going to turn the corner? But this season I think, and it's been built on. And to be fair, this was maybe their Achilles heel. It's been built on a core group of homegrown players that have come through and are really exciting. They've got some really exciting backs. Vermeulen coming in just gives them that little bit more beef. I think that'll still be their challenge if they go further in Europe. They certainly beefed up their pack. Probably could do with another big second row.
They were actually supposed to be in the market for them and all. They were saying at the start of the season they couldn't get a hold of
You could
one.
expect if they could do that, and that's probably they've got three fine second rows there, and Alan O'Connor, who's probably the from a representative perspective has probably achieved at least. He's the beating heart of the team. He's the captain, so he's obviously bringing a lot to what they do, and a lot of their successes. He's been leading from the front on that, but. The match against Connacht, getting back to that, it's another example of how they've progressed. They've made the old Ravenhill, now the Kingspan, was always a very tough place to play, but you just kind of get the sense of the form they're in at the moment. Between what they've done to the forwards and their exciting backs, they just were too much for Connacht. And Connacht, I really like the way Connacht play. I think Andy Friend really tries to get them to play good rugby. And they do try to play, but they just, in the last couple of matches, they just have looked a little bit off the pace. They were going very well in Europe. I think losing that match in Paris really kind of knocked their confidence a bit. Then they've had kind of two less than positive results on the road, then back in the league. And I'd say the disruption from Six Nations is something that Andy.
They're a different team without Carty as well, without Aki and without Hansen.
Exactly.
Especially your 10 is such a pivotal player. You take him out.
It's a strength. Maybe the depth, they just haven't quite got that. But I'd say Andy Friend will be concerned about getting them back on track.
Yeah.
I think you all agree though, Ballycoon. Unbelievable. He had a fantastic game and he was trying things. He was trying to get around. It was unfortunate he ran into his own player at that one time, but he was really trying to make space, and that try, the speed of him.
Yeah, the really interesting about Robert Ballycoon is that he started with the sevens team.
You played him in the sevens?
I played with him, so years ago. I remember this tall, lanky guy coming in, and he's from up the north. We were like, who's it? And he was standing over in the corner, like throwing the ball to himself. Didn't really get involved. And to be honest, his skills were really bad when he first came in, and then he just took off. He just really tuned in, and he just became one of the best players within a season. And now look at him; he's probably going to feature in the Six Nations, is he?
Yeah, I think he's very much an athlete who's turned into a rugby player. Obviously he was a sprinter, and he had the physique of a sprinter. And I thought at the start, I just hadn't seen enough of him. When I saw him, I wasn't sure if he was going to be able to make the step up towards the national side. But obviously he missed a bit of rugby last year. But this season he's come back. He put on a bit of size, and obviously everyone talks about his pace, and that try at the weekend was incredible, like a 50 metre
I think we have a clip of that try actually. We're loaded up there. It's going to be our try of the week for this week.
Nice little pass from Michael Lowry, running under the ball. Away goes Robert Ballycoon. What a result here. The Connacht defence. To watch Ballycoon in full flight, blitzkrieg Ballycoon. Look at that.
People talk about his pace.
So yeah, Absolutely cracking try.
Yeah, cracking try, and just great wheels, like just incredible raw pace, and at such at the highest level, if you can get players who can finish like that, that's where you're going to win your games. But I think, to be fair to Robert Balogun, what he's done in the other parts of his game are probably what have impressed me most this year. Like in probably epitomised most by that match against what I saw him in the Northampton match away. You know, he fought really hard for that try. He scored that first try again, a lot of cover, and he showed a lot of power to be able to get in the corner for the try in that first half. And then that second half, I think it was for Lowry's try, he was able to get between defenders and offload. So again, these kind of aspects of the game, things that obviously he's worked on. He's worked on his strength, he's worked on his skills, clearly. And he'd be thereabouts, I'd say, for a run this season. You know, he's unfortunate, like, obviously Andy Farrell's fortune is his misfortune in the sense that there's so many players.
There's no
in the
space,
back three.
yeah.
There's a lot of really competitive, top quality internationals in the back three at the moment on the wing. So, but I'd say his time will come.
We were talking about last week the strength and depth that the nines at the moment. Even I was really impressed with the 9 from Connacht this week. He's tackling was outstanding. He got a fantastic try. A fantastic tackle to stop the try in from the Ulster player, Doak, and it was unbelievable.
No, it's good.
And Nathan Doak got man of the match as well. Like, so the scrum halves are playing really well.
Yeah, it is not what you're saying. But it's interesting you say about Balogun there as well. Like, he's so multifaceted across all our wingers. Like, they've all got so many tools in their locker. Like, you look at Hansen, you look at Balogun, you look at Lowe, like you look at Conway. They're not just one-dimensional try-scoring winners, like wingers. They can do everything, like, and we seem to have 5 or 6 wingers like that now. Like, we're literally slotted anywhere across the back line, which is unheard of, I think, to have that many in a team. Normally you have 1 or 2 wingers that are that multi-skilled. But
and Lowry really impressed me as well. I thought he had an exceptional game. Whatever, he must be really confident coming out of the Irish camp. Like, he was caught in open Connacht, like they were. It looked like he was a man against boys, like 2 or 3 times. He just cut straight through. So I'd say would you say it's coming from him being in Irish camp, just making him feel confident?
Well, I think he was very, like, he had fantastic form going into the Irish camp. You kind of feel with guys like Hume and Larry that they need to get a run this year for Ireland, because sometimes you can have fantastic seasons and it's hard to keep them going. And sometimes if it's your season and you're just playing really fantastic, if you don't get a run, it can pass you by, or it can be a bit demotivating. So, not that the Six Nations or international rugby is the arena to give people a run out, but hopefully hopefully his opportunity will come.
Do you think we'll see these kind of guys play against Italy in the 3rd round?
Well, yeah, it's
the obvious choice, really, isn't it?
You could say that I don't think, as I said, any national coach is going to want to chop and change his team too much just for the sake of it, just to give guys a run. I said, like, international rugby isn't really. I just don't think it's about giving guys a run out. But I think there is a couple of guys who would fit into the squad and fit into the team and would be able to step up. And probably those two, Hume and Larry would be 2. I'd say, who'd be thereabouts.
But when are these guys going to get experience at international level before the World Cup next year? Like autumn internationals, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Is it a tour to New Zealand this summer?
Yeah, tour to New Zealand this summer. So 3 tests.
3 tests.
Were you going to bring those guys to New Zealand?
Yeah, I'm not sure, because I think they'll have to bring a big squad to take 3 if they're going to play 3 tests. But it's
we're definitely looking up towards that World Cup next year now. That's what kind of everyone's prepping for, really.
Yeah, and obviously touring as it is these days, you don't have any other games apart from test matches. It's not like that.
So, would they possibly try and throw in a midweek in there against a club if they can, if it's possible?
Yeah.
I don't know. Probably too late for that.
Well, I'm sure it's either scheduled to happen or it's not going to happen. But it's one of the drawbacks, I suppose, of the obviously how packed the season is. You just don't have the bandwidth for those types of tours anymore.
Definitely. So there's 2 other results in the URC. Obviously, the South African side. So the Stormers beat the Sharks 2010, and the Bulls beat the Lions 21-13. But we're going to move on now to the rugby news of the week, and the big one was something we talked about last week. I don't know if you might have seen this or not, Dennis. The Craig Gilroy citation. So we were very much. I was like, I don't know how the hell that wasn't a red card last week, but he has been cited. But the interesting part of it, I suppose, obviously we explained it last week. Like, the reason he was cited, the reason he's been done for this, and the reason it's been brought to a red card is there is mitigation there, but he comes in with a hard shoulder, with force. It was very dangerous. It was a red card. But interestingly, he got a 4-week ban, but they were bringing it down to 2 weeks. But then at the hearing, he goes, no, I disagree, and I don't think that should be banned. So they brought it back up to 4 weeks. They wouldn't give him the show.
Yeah, I read that. I wasn't sure if they were saying he disagreed with it on the pitch, or if it was at the hearing. I wasn't sure. But if you're saying it was at the hearing,
hearing, so he basically disagreed with your decision to upgrade it from a yellow to a red.
Yeah. Well, I suppose he was appealing it, and obviously Ulster Rugby thought he should appeal it. But to be honest, I don't have a problem with the referee getting that wrong on the day, because first of all, what's happened can always happen. So there is now a pathway for, maybe a decision that should have been different to be cited, right? So if something needs to be rectified and somebody needs to be punished for foul play, there's a pathway to do it. I think on balance, there's been much more. I've seen much more decisions by referees, which I would have thought are much more marginal, and guys getting a yellow card or red card. So I think to be fair to Piper, he's had a look at it. He's taken a view. I'd much prefer referees to actually stick with what they thought, as opposed to going through this. Trying to get the TMO to make the decision or the touches to make a decision. And the reality is, somebody gets sent off in a match, the game changes, and can usually changes the contest. So it's not to, in this particular case, it's not to excuse a foul play that was.
No. You're making a fair point. I think, like I said, Piper's a good referee. He was the referee yesterday in the Ireland-Wales match as well. He stuck to his gun on the day, like, yellow card, probably fair. But when we go back and we analyse it and we look at it, it was a red card. So I think Gilroy is a bit silly to try and complain there and try and what was he expecting the game from that? Like, he was,
what I find mad is that he obviously argued his case for the last couple of weeks, being like, it's not a red card, and then they give it to him, and he's just supposed to accept, it is a red card, and to drop it down to 2 weeks. He's obviously not going to change his argument.
Well, he's not. You're not really. He doesn't have to accept it. Like, it's just.
But that's what they wanted him to do.
You're just saying, just accept. Like,
I think as well, like, it's not. I wouldn't want to get the impression that you've got Craig Gilroy standing up on his own going, I disagree. Like, these are quasi legal. And they're really probably overpowered disciplinary. The disciplinary process is pretty heavy. It's pretty heavy duty. You've got lawyers, you've got a panel, you've got people arguing the minutiae of the decision. You've got a huge amount of footage. You've got like 19 cameras at each game, whatever that is. So they're quite high powered. So if it's Craig Gilroy is objecting, it's actually really Ulster Rugby taking the view and going, saying, we think there's mitigating circumstances and this is the appeal we're putting in. So, he has to go along with it, really.
Other big news, interesting, Niamh Briggs being named the women's assistant coach. What do you think of her getting that role? I mean, she's been around a while, she knows her stuff. Yeah,
she's been appointed with the coach Williams, and it's a great team. Like, together, the two of them, she's got great experience because he coached her back when they were in the World Cup for years. So they have a really good relationship, and Niamh's brought on Munster this season to the champions win. So she's the assistant coach. She's Munster, assistant coach, and
the full-time coach of she's the head coach of Bows, is it? UL Bows?
UL Bows, and then Munster's this season as well. And the girls are actually in camp. They're doing a screening camp this weekend. I think there's about 40 players getting screened, trying different players out. It's kind of like a trial basis as well, which is great to see. A lot of the players are still over in the UK playing Premiership this weekend, and they're just exposing players to that high-end rugby, and it's going to be. Things are changing in the
coming
setup
together
at the
slowly
moment.
with the sevens
really
as well, like last
exciting,
week, and
Briggs has been a part of that for years, so she really has a good insight to what's going on.
And in the women's rugby, are they still trying to get players from like Gaelic and soccer and?
Not as far as I know is what they used to. That was a big thing back when I started the sevens. Is trying to transfer players from Gaelic and football and stuff, but they're not. They're really focusing on the players that we have that are in club, coming up from underage. That's the main focus, because that's what you want, those basic skills from rugby, grassroots.
You can't buy that experience. Like, obviously, someone could be an unbelievable athlete at Gaelic football, but you can't just throw them then into an international rugby match. So.
I know, it's happened. Yeah, they have tried it. We've tried it, and there has been players on the back of that saying that are phenomenal rugby players now. Like they've trained and they've earned their spots on the team 100%. So it's not to say that doesn't work.
They'll learn your trade.
But at the moment, there's players that are playing rugby who are young, they're fit, and they're playing really well at the club level. They should be given a chance to trial for the Irish team, and that's what they're doing.
It's really cool to hear that there's so many women playing rugby at that level, that you can bring in 40 players and screen them.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's unreal, isn't it?
It's really good.
Big things coming for the 15 side, hopefully.
Really looking forward to
follow the sevens.
Yeah, that's it. They kick off in the end of March, so that's going to be great.
Excellent. Other news there, it's great to see Six Nations donating 100,000 to the relief efforts over in Tonga. So obviously we know about the tsunami over in Tonga. They've also set up a dedicated website, sixnationsrugby.com/Tonga, if you want to go on and donate and help them out with medical kits and cooking sets and hygiene kits and whatnot.
Amazing.
But and then sticking on the subject of Tonga, a man who's recently switched over to Tonga, your good pal, who you made mincemeat of in the sevens, but Malachi Fekitoa it's been confirmed that he's after signing for Munster. What do you make of that, Dennis?
It's a big signing for them, obviously, with Delande. It looks like he's going to be moving on, and
he's going to Japan.
He looks like he's going to Japan, or either way, he's not going to be with Munster next year. But those things, and he's a proper world class player. Delande, he's been fantastic for all the teams he's played for. So he's going to be a big loss. But they've moved quickly, obviously, to get another marquee player in Fekitoa, who's obviously highly experienced, World Cup winner. I'm not sure he would have the same impact as Delande will have, because he's a current international playing at the peak of his powers. But it's a really strong signing for them, and it certainly give their confidence their squad a lot of confidence, that the fact they've been able to move so quickly to recruit someone of that sort of stature.
Definitely keeping Simon then as well, but very different player, Fekitoa. I mean, he's more of a 13. Delande is your real solid 12, and then Farrell, they're probably going to have to push Farrell back to 12 maybe, or maybe start Scannell instead, because I don't see Fekitoa filling that 12 role. He probably could, he's pretty all black at the end of the day. But
you wouldn't be overly happy if you were in Munster. If you're Chris Farrell, you have Rory Scannell, you have Dan Goggin, you have there's fellas in there there's going to be pushed back now again. So obviously it's great having these big marquee signings which come in, and it's cool to have academy players training with the likes of Fekitoa, but does it kind of say to the Munster lads, we don't back you, we're going to bring in it?
Well, I think all the provinces have built success around getting the right balance between bringing in marquee players and bringing through their own players, and it's a delicate balance. I think some teams have probably suffered, like Ulster probably overdid it for a while, and it was to the detriment of bringing through the players to the point you're making, and they seem to have got the balance right, and you can see these guys who are coming through, but it's a big squad. You need a big squad, and I think to have guys like that in your squad, I think it's I take your point about the fact that there's somebody who's going to be discommoded by the fact that they see that as their position. But there's a lot of rugby to be played.
Dan Goggin just re-signed with Munster, and if Fekitoa's in there, Chris Farrell's in there, but he's going to be playing A rugby or playing for your own Munsters, where he's been with Munster for how long now? Surely it's time to go, Dan, now let's go, let's see it.
Still, at the end of the day, you still need 4 centres in there, and I suppose maybe if anyone picks up an injury, you're only one injury away, or if Fekitoa's playing for Tonga, or if there's a few other games, if there's other games on, you know what I mean? It's the fixtures are coming hard and fast these days with the URC and Champions Cup and Six Nations. What if Farrell goes to Six Nations? So, but then
Farrell can't even get into the Six Nations squad now.
True. But what age is Dan? Dan is 20? Is he 25?
27.
What's he going to learn off someone like Fekitoa? If anything's going to bring his game up, to be training alongside him.
I take Greg's point. I don't think he probably wants to learn too much more. I'd say rather just be playing and learning from another legend. I'm sure he's learned a lot from Delande. But I think, to your point, I think there's a lot of rugby, and there's a lot of games to go around at the moment. So
even sorry, I know I'm getting very into it now, but there's fellas like Alex McHenry, who was with Munster, and because they had too many players there, they loaned him out to Wasps for this season. He played really well in Wasps, and then they didn't have a contract for him in Wasps, so he's back in Munster now. He's a centre that's 25 that can play ball. He's actually good friends with Fekitoa now after being in Wasps. And why can't you give him a contract, put him into the centre? Do you know what I mean? He's born and bred from Cork.
Yeah.
I don't know, I just get very passionate about it. I'm like, why are we giving these guys 100, 200 grand to come over when we have good enough players in Ireland?
There's a lot more than 100, 200 grand.
Keep going.
To bring over Mack Hansen. I can tell you that much.
Yes, I read the 100 grand they gave at the time.
Sorry, I think it's...
But I was just like, why? Just stop paying these guys. And also, sorry, I'm going to get a bit worked up now, but also in Connacht, Andy Friend just keeps bringing guys up from Australia. Like, he's brought over 2 Australian sevens players when you have some of the best sevens players in the world sitting in Dublin. Jordan Conroy's sitting in his arse or dancing and Dance with the Stars, and he's the top try scorer in the world. Terry Kennedy, top impact player in DHL in the Sevens World Series, and they're flying guys up from Australia. I'm like, fine with Mack Hansen because he's Irish qualified, but these other guys, I'm just like, the Irish need to start backing their own players. I just get really worked up because I just think...
Well, it's certainly a legitimate point that the sevens was seen certainly at its inception as a pathway for bringing players through. And if that is the case,
like, what more does Jordan Conroy have to do? But
it seems like a separate
be
side,
the top
like,
try
with the
scorer in
odd
the world.
player coming through, like, as well. It seems like Hugo Keenan's whatnot coming through, but to me it seemed like 2 very different teams.
Yeah, he would. But like, the thing, those guys, Hugo Keenans and Shane Daly's and Will Connors, the only reason, and the Irish are using it, being like, oh, the sevens pathway. These guys are already contracted with Leinster and stuff. They just get brought back.
Of course.
Where there's guys who are just sevens contracted. None of them are getting an opportunity. Like.
But news just in: France are playing Italy at the moment, and they're 73 minutes in, beating Italy 30-10. And we're told it's tricky conditions over there in Paris. It's really, really rainy, so it's looking good.
Yeah, but look, I mean, come here. Look, they went 3-0 ahead. Italy got themselves back into it. Italy were 7-3 ahead after 24 minutes. So, but like coming into the last quarter, France got their bonus point. So after 68 minutes with who else? Demi Peno, who I think is probably the best winger, /12/13, wherever you put him. So he's the guy. He's playing on the right wing today. He's a guy I'd be. I mean, he's a guy I'd be scared of for Ireland for next week.
Yeah, he's kind of in a range. He's an unusual looking build even for a winger. He doesn't, he's obviously very athletic and he's strong, but he just has.
He looks heavy.
A bit of an old school look about him, you know.
Yeah,
he's a fantastic player. He's a fantastic player, and he can play. He can play. He plays a bit, and he can play in the centre as well if he needs to. But he's incredible. He's been an incredible form for Clermont. I think he was injured a bit last year.
He was,
Yeah, and but it certainly hasn't seemed to slow him down. He's absolutely class. He's an amazing instinct for try scoring. And if he's playing against Ireland next week, he's certainly a player they're going to have to watch.
Interesting. If it does come down to it, look, I know they got their bonus point, which they're expected to get, like, but 30-10, like, with only a few minutes to go, like, so even if they do manage to get another try, like, that's not a huge margin against Italy, like, and I know we hate knocking Italy, like, but you know, Ireland could put 50-60 points past Italy, and so can Wales, and so can Scotland, and so can England, whatever. And it could come down to that. France probably would have expected a bigger score margin there if it does come down to the points difference, as you said.
Yeah, well, they certainly won't be. They certainly won't be happy that there was an opportunity maybe to score more. Obviously, we haven't seen the game. Italy are rebuilding at the moment, and they've been bringing their underage teams are getting better and better. And I think their captain is this year, is he 21? 22. They're very young, so they really are trying to make in more changes. Kieran Crowley, the coach there, who was the coach of Benetton only for a couple of seasons, and they asked him to take the job, which he's taken on. So it'll be interesting to see where Italy fall out this year, because they unfortunately had gone from being very competitive when they entered the Six Nations to being they went through a period of being competitive but not snatching the odd win. They haven't been really competitive the last two seasons, certainly since Parise has left. So they do need to have a competitive season this year, and maybe this is the start of performances.
Definitely, it'll be interesting to watch this back, like whether it was just the conditions or whether or not Italy actually gave them a good game.
Yeah, well, to score 10 points in Paris in bad conditions, that's decent. Like, so what I mean.
Yep.
So
definitely. So look, I think that's all we have time for, unfortunately. But I know it was great to have you on, Dennis. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks very much, Dennis, for all your insight. And of course, a big thank you to our sponsors, Bank of Ireland, proud supporters of the 4 Irish provinces.
We'll see you again next week, guys, for round 2 of the Six Nations, where hopefully we'll be looking back on a win for Ireland over France.
Joe presents House of Rugby, United Rugby Championship, together with Bank of Ireland, proud supporter of the 4 Irish provinces.